Hello, I'm Henry Keane and we are UATV. We're online to give you the Ukrainian perspective of reality. Watch in the episode. Strikes on Russia continue as Zelenskyy talked to Trump. Ukraine will support rare earth metals to the US. Kursk operation, the aftermath 1 year after. Meanwhile, join the right side of history by subscribing to our channel. Welcome to the News Pulse. On the morning of Wednesday, the Russian city of Bryansk came under drone attack. Residents reported a series of powerful explosions, the sound of air defense systems in action and thick smoke rising near what appeared to be an oil facility. The event was widely discussed on Russian Telegram channels and social media. According to eyewitnesses, the explosions began around 5 in the morning local time, with more than 10 loud blasts reported. While some drones were reportedly intercepted by air defenses, others appeared to hit their intended targets. Locals shared images and videos of black smoke bellowing from one part of the city. Social media users claimed the target was an oil depot. The Russian authorities have not officially confirmed this. Bryansk region governor Alexander Bogomaz stated that 16 drones were allegedly shot down by Russian air defense overnight. He also claimed there were no casualties and no damage, and that emergency services were working at the scene. The region is home to a strategically important site, the Bryansk loading station of the Druzhba oil pipeline, which is used for the storage and transport of diesel fuel, including for supplying the Russian military. Also, another oil depot and plant was again hit in Rostov. Volodymyr Zelenskyy had a telephone conversation with Donald Trump, which focused on the issue of ending the war in Ukraine. Of course, according to the president of Ukraine, Kyiv and Washington exchanged assessments of the situation on the front line, including the issue of the intensification of Russian terror strikes on peaceful cities in Ukraine. Zelenskyy also confirmed that Ukraine has already prepared a draft defense deal on drones with the United States. He called it potentially one of the strongest ever.
There is another decision within the framework of the initiative to purchase American weapons, plus $500 million, the total amount from our friends from Northern Europe, Sweden, Norway and Denmark. It will be implemented under the coordination of NATO. Such steps are a new real basis for all European security in the long term. Russia will never turn Europe into a continent of war, and it is thanks to our joint efforts that we can now guarantee peace. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The president of Ukraine called the new mechanism for purchasing American weapons a strong initiative that significantly strengthens Ukrainian potential for protecting life. The president expressed special gratitude for the initiative to Donald Trump in a telephone conversation.
Today we coordinated the positions of Ukraine and the United States. We exchanged assessments of the situation. The Russians have increased the brutality of their attacks. President Trump is fully informed about Russian strikes on Kyiv, other cities and communities. Of course, we talked about sanctions against Russia. The economy continues to decline, and that is why Moscow takes such a prospect and the determination of President Trump so seriously. This can change a lot. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Trump's special representative Steve Witkoff has arrived in Moscow by now. His plane just landed at Vnukovo airport. And now he has meetings with Russian leadership in Moscow. Well, let me remind you that US President Donald Trump announced the day before that his special envoy would meet with representatives of the aggressor country Russia in Moscow in the Kremlin on Wednesday, August 6th. Donald Trump also said that he would make a decision on putting pressure on Russia and its trading partners buying Russian oil after Witkoff's visit to the Russian Federation. In July, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine approved about 140 new models of weapons and types of military equipment for the defense forces. More than 85% of them are domestically produced. Amongst new products are ammunition, in particular for UAVs, unmanned aerial systems, ground robotic systems, also for electronic warfare and reconnaissance equipment, as well as modern optics, communications, vehicles and armored vehicles. The US State Department has approved the potential sale of repair, maintenance and logistics services for M777 howitzers to Ukraine. The total value of package is more than $200 million, the Pentagon reports. It added that the contractor for the first contract of $104 million will be a company from the United Kingdom. Let me also remind you that the US Permanent Representative to the UN, Dorothy Scheer, during a Security Council meeting directly accused China of assisting Russia's aggression against Ukraine. According to her, Chinese components are regularly found in drones, weapons and equipment that the Russian Federation uses to attack Ukraine daily. Washington called on Beijing to stop exporting so-called dual-use goods that finally end up in the Russian military-industrial complex and allow the Kremlin to maintain a high tempo of terror attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure.
These regimes supply Moscow with drones, missiles, and ammunition, while Chinese companies continue to provide dual-use goods and equipment, contributions that further fuel Russia's ability to wage war and deepen the suffering inflicted on our people.
Earlier, China promised to increase support for Russia in response to US President Donald Trump's threats to impose higher tariffs on Moscow's trade partners. Well, this was reported by The Telegraph. Analysts noted, though, that the military partnership between China and the Russian Federation continues to develop in a secret but stable manner, and this affects not only the course of the war against Ukraine, but also, obviously, the global strategic balance. Amidst growing tensions in trade relations with the United States, China has limited supplies of raw materials to Western defense companies. The Wall Street Journal reports on that, citing sources. Beijing's decision has already led to delays in production and rising prices for rare earth metals. The latter are needed to create various military products, from missiles to fighter jets. It's noted that China supplies about 90% of rare earth metals to the world market, and the country also occupies a leading position in the production of many others critical materials and minerals. Ukraine and the United States are planning to launch 3 mineral extraction projects in Ukraine. This was announced by the head of the Ukrainian government, Yulia Sviridenko, after talks with the US Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent. The parties also discussed strengthening cooperation in the defense sector and sanctions pressure on Russia. This news came handy after the recession in Chinese rare earth supplies to the US and other partners. Ukrainian mineral extractions has slowly stopped since the war started back in 2014, so reviving an entire mining industry with direct commercial orders from the US looks like a good kickstart for the whole economy in Ukraine.
We talked about continuing and strengthening cooperation in the defense and investment spheres. We paid considerable attention to the potential defense agreement announced by President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on the production and sale of Ukrainian drones, as well as the possible purchase of American weapons. We discussed the launch of the American-Ukrainian Investment Recovery Fund. We are working to expand its mandate so that the fund can invest in the defense sector as well. We also raised the issues of increasing sanctions pressure and cooperation with international financial organizations. Yulia Sviridenko, Prime Minister of Ukraine, on Facebook.
More than 80,000 killed and wounded, almost 1,000 prisoners, and about 3,000 units of equipment and weapons. These are Russian losses as a result of the operation of the Ukrainian defense forces in the Kursk region. This is the first case in military history when a country without a nuclear arsenal just takes control of parts of the territory of a nuclear state. Valeria Nikipelova will tell you more about the results and the aftermath of the Kursk operation of the Ukrainian Defense Forces exactly 1 year after.
The commander of a unit from the 22nd Separate Mechanized Brigade of Ukraine's ground forces, with the call sign Storm, recalls how he reacted when he received the command to begin operations in Russia's Kursk region. He says the Ukrainian armed forces achieved what had once seemed like an impossible dream.
I won't make anything up. I'll say it honestly. I was shocked at first. I couldn't believe we were really going to cross the border. I thought it was just talk. But when the first group actually moved in on the 6th of month, I realized this was no joke. This was real, and I had to treat it seriously and be ready for combat.
According to several Western media outlets, Russia's military command learned of Ukraine's Kursk operation months in advance. But that didn't stop chaos from erupting in the ranks of the invading army.
Вони були налякані.
They were scared. They never expected us to actually cross the border, to enter their territory, to start doing anything, like taking prisoners or storming positions. So they surrendered, both individually and in groups. We saw border guards, special forces, even conscripts laying down their arms.
Just days into Ukraine's operation in Russia's Kursk region, videos began appearing online showing Russian soldiers surrendering.
Сколько вас там идет?
How many of you are there? Just me. They gave me the radio. All right, come on, move.
Их перекинули сюда под Суджи.
They had been deployed near Sudzha and attached to the 155th Brigade. But according to them, the 155th Brigade left them behind. No communication, no food, no water. By the fifth day, they decided to surrender.
Ukraine's top military commander, Oleksandr Syrsky, stated that in just the first 20 days of the offensive, nearly 600 Russian soldiers were captured.
To free our people from Russian torture chambers, Ukraine's defense forces are constantly replenishing the exchange fund with captured Russian soldiers and officers. The most successful effort in this regard was the Kursk offensive. Between August 6, 2024, and May 25, 2025, our defenders took 971 Russian servicemen prisoner from a post by Ukraine's General Staff on Facebook.
Among the captured were Russian conscripts, who, according to President Putin, were never supposed to be involved in combat.
In 2022, 2023, and the first half of 2024, Ukraine was always the one to initiate talks about prisoner exchanges. But for the first time, Russia reached out directly, right after Ukraine launched its offensive in the Kursk region. In my view, the Kursk operation gave Ukraine a major advantage in this area. Dmytro Libinets, Ukrainian Parliament Commissioner for Human Rights, in an interview with Ukrainska Pravda.
On August 24, 2024, Ukraine's Independence Day, 115 Ukrainian soldiers returned home from Russian captivity. To stop the Ukrainian advance and launch a counteroffensive, the Russian military sent tens of thousands of troops to the Kursk front and, for the first time, deployed soldiers from North Korea. Pyongyang provided Moscow with 11,000 elite troops.
Russia's use of the elite North Korean contingent indicates not only a deepening dependence on totalitarian regimes, but also real problems with the mobilization reserve. Together with our partners, we are monitoring these threats and will respond accordingly. Rustem Umarov, Secretary of Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, at a press briefing on June 26, 2025.
The Kursk operation allowed Ukraine's defense forces to cripple Russia's strategic reserves and draw operational units away from other parts of the front. According to President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the operation was essential in thwarting Moscow's plans to seize more Ukrainian territory.
This was a preventive measure to stop the Russians from capturing Sumy and advancing from the north, or from seizing Kharkiv and pushing in from the east. That's why our troops launched the Kursk offensive, to disrupt their plans for occupation.
At the peak of the operation, Ukrainian forces controlled around 1,300 square kilometers of Russian territory, more than 100 settlements. Today, Ukraine's defense forces still hold some border areas, and the Kursk operation continues.
The operation has since evolved. Its goals are now very different. What's important, region. Right now, the operation is ongoing near the Russian village of Tyotkino in the Glushkovsky district of Kursk Oblast, and it's still achieving its objectives.
According to Ukraine's military command, the Kursk operation continues to pin down a large number of Russian forces, preventing them from launching offensives elsewhere.
The enemy still can't do anything about our presence there. Meanwhile, our forces are conducting maneuver warfare and tying down Russian reserves. Troops that otherwise could have been deployed, for example, to the Pokrovsk front.
Ukraine's top commander, Oleksandr Syrsky, says at least 80,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or wounded since the start of the Kursk operation. Ukrainian losses, he says, are significantly lower. Reported by Valeria Nekipolova, UATV News.
Well, that was it for today. My name is Henry Keane and we are News Pulse at UATV. We appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you so very much. And I urge you to join the fight for freedom and sovereignty, at least by subscribing to our channel and staying tuned to what is happening in the world, presented from Ukrainian perspective. Hope to see you soon with us. Stay tuned. Goodbye.